Hello, everyone, and welcome to ETM 560, Research and Planning for Equity and Excellence. I'm Tom Riddle, and I will be working with you during this course. Just a little bit of background about me to go along with your introductions in our discussion board threads. This is my 5th or 6th course here at McDaniel in the Equity and Excellence program. In my other job, I am the assistant principal at South Carroll High School in Sykesville, Maryland, and I live in Westminster, pretty close to college, with my wife and our dog. This course is laid out just like all the rest of the courses that you've taken in the Equity and Excellence program. There's 4 modules, each one lasting for 2 weeks. The first one starts on Monday the 11th. Module 1 will look at what is action research and data analysis. Module 2 will start to figure out your research topic by analyzing a research question. Module 3 will do the lit review, analyze some literature related to your topic. And in Module 4, you'll develop a research plan. This course is different from your equity and excellence coursework in that we're not going to necessarily focus on major topics in equity and excellence and discuss them, but more focus on how do we research topics related to our classrooms and our schools and put things into place. As we go through each module, we'll go through different steps in developing your ultimate research plan, which is the big deliverable that you'll turn in the last module. So what are the requirements for the course? Just like in other McDaniel courses, there's a discussion board in each module. Each module also includes 3 threads. You'll notice in our discussion boards for each module that one of them is pretty open-ended. It asks you to just pose a question or a think about or something that you've taken away from the module so far. This is kind of a replacement of learning logs that you may have done in some of your other courses. Learning logs are not a requirement. Remember that you should be participating in each discussion board thread about 3 times, your intro post and 2 responses to your colleagues. In Module 1, you also have a data analysis project, which we'll talk about a little bit more. In Module 2, you'll write a memo to your principal or supervisor analyzing some data. In Module 3, you'll do a lit review on your proposed topic. And in Module 4, you'll write your research plan. You'll notice, and we'll talk about this again more, your memo to the principal or supervisor in Module 2 will help you with the first section of your research plan. And your lit review will also be a pretty solid section of your research plan as well. So Module 2 and 3 will be writing the research plan, so you're not totally writing it all in Module 4. Because the research plan is pretty comprehensive and because this is a little bit different than some of your other topics covered in your other courses, we do have some optional check-ins. These are totally optional. They don't impact your grade. We'll be using Google Meets to have a half-hour session once a module, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page about what the assignment is for that module and how we're developing or how we're moving through to our ultimate goal of developing a research plan. Again, these are optional. You don't have to attend. I'll post the link and a reminder a few days before they're scheduled. So what should you be doing? Well, let's take a look at the Blackboard course first. If you haven't done so already, make sure you look at the Blackboard course. Make sure you start with the Read Me First section, which gives you the intro and my contact information. The best way to contact me is through my McDaniel email, but if you need a very quick response, feel free to send me a text message. My number is right here. It talks about the course structure, including the syllabus, the course guide, and the module areas, which you should be familiar with, and then the discussion forums. Same format, same requirements as all of your other McDaniel courses. Remember that we should be using APA format, and it reviews time expectations and characteristics of a successful online learner. At this stage in the game, though, you are pretty good at that. The syllabus is listed here. If you haven't done so already, the most important thing is to make sure that you've gotten the Putman and Rock text on action research. This isn't a book that you'll be reading word for word as you would have in some of your other courses, but it's still a pretty important guide, and it's still going to guide most of our learning in this course. The course rubric just gives you an outline of what the course is going to look like. divided by each module. You can also find each of these informations in each module page. And then the rubrics for each of your assignments are posted here. They're also posted inside of the module where the assignment is specifically given. So let's look at Module 1. In Module 1, you're reading Chapter 1, 5, and 6 of the Putnam book. Again, you might not need to read this word for word. Skim it. Some of the information is probably pretty familiar to you. Chapter 1 is going to answer the question of what is action research, how does it impact our work in our schools, and through a lens of equity. Chapter 5 is how do we collect data, the difference between qualitative and quantitative data. And Chapter 6 is how do we analyze data. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is complete the equity audit. It will be very helpful in Module 2. It's linked here. You may have seen it in other courses. There's a data sort, which is pretty helpful in just reviewing the difference between qualitative and quantitative research. Additional resources for Module 1 include this presentation here about what is action research, and then quick summary of what's the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. Let's look at the discussion boards quickly for Module 1. There's 3 threads in this module. The first thread asks you to analyze one of 2 articles. The key thing that you're doing when you're looking at this is you're analyzing it from the lens of a researcher. So you're thinking about what was the problem that they were investigating? How did they pick their participants? How did they analyze their data? How did they go about researching? Those are the important things that you should be looking at. While we want to think about equity and we want to think about our impact on our students, for this discussion thread, think more about how was the research developed. The second thread in this discussion module is just asking you how you've used data. As educators, we use data a lot, so this should be a pretty simple question for you to answer and respond to. Think about maybe not just what data have you used, but what data do you wish you could have had to kind of encourage the conversation to go a little bit further. And the last thread is just what are some questions or comments that you have so far. Again, as I said earlier, this might be your replacement for your learning log. What are you thinking about? What are your next steps? Those could be some guiding questions for this open thread. Going back to the Module 1 page, we've talked about the discussion board, and so the major project for this, or the major deliverable for Module 1, is the data analysis project. And major is probably not the best word to describe it because I hope you find that this is pretty straightforward and pretty easy to manage. So your job for this assignment is to take a set of data. There's 4 data sets listed here that you could use as an example, or 4 data sets that you could use to do your project. If you want to use data from your school, which I would highly encourage you to do, then please do that instead. It might help you get further into the next steps. But your job here is to just simply write a 2 to 3 page paper or make a presentation. I would encourage you to go towards the presentation. It might save you some time looking at your data. The rubric is really going to help you define the requirements the most. First of all, data presentation. Can you take the data, whatever it is, and can you present it? Can you interpret it? Can you display it? Can you describe it? Can you create graphs and charts? Can you develop and describe the theme? That's the first requirement of this project. The second one is, can you analyze the data? Can you look for the strengths and the weaknesses that are supported by the data? And then the last step is, can you think of what's the problem of practice? What is the research question that the researcher might use if they were going to take this data and research further? What literature might they search for? And what are some interventions that an educator might use to help change that data? So for example, if I know that my students are not achieving a certain skill in math, what is an intervention that I might use to try to improve their mathematic abilities? So 3 parts: presentation of your data, your analysis of your data, and then what's the next step if I was going to make this into a major action research project. What's my problem in practice, or what's my research question? What's the literature that I want to study? And then what are some possible interventions that I could test out? This is due the last day of the module at 11:59. Remember to turn it in. Just click the link and then submit it here. If you're going to do a PowerPoint, please upload the file. If you're going to do a Google slide, just make sure that your link is active so that I can access it. If you have any questions along the way in this module, feel free to reach out through email. We'll interact with each other on the discussion board, hopefully pretty often, but I really look forward to working with all of you as we look at how do we research and how do we plan for equity in our schools.